Hello and welcome back to Codeblaze. In the last episode of creating color switch in Godot, we finished the player movement and set up some visibility notifiers to notify when the player exits the screen so that we can signal game over. And in today's episode, we'll be creating some traps. So basically put some more logic of the color switch game. So let's see how far we get in this episode. Think traps may take one episode or I may split it in two. Not decided on that. But let's get started. If you look in the assets folder of the project, I have provided some basic parts from which you can create different shapes or traps, like this curve to create a circle or a fan blade. And these shapes are pretty simple to create. You can definitely create your own. But to limit the scope of this series, we'll just be using the curve and create circles as our traps. So we'll create a new scene for our trap in our scenes folder. Let's call it trap. And the root would be a node 2D. And let's just name it trap. And to this, we'll add another node 2D. And this would represent the shape. So we have a source image of a quarter circle. And we'll be using 4 of them to create a full circle. And each of those quarter circle will have a different part. So we will have some other nodes also here. That's why to keep the shape separated under one node, we'll create a separate node here, call it shape. Okay. And inside this, we'll add our quarter circle. And each of this quarter circle needs to have some collision detection information. So let's start with an area 2D. Okay. And to this area 2D, we'll add a color node. Okay. So this was the custom node that we created. And we'll pass the curve as the texture. And then we can easily change the color for all the 4 parts, right? So we can have this one be the top left. Okay. So we'll just create the top left one and duplicate it and just reposition the others. Okay. So to area 2D, we need to provide a collision shape also. Now you can add a collision polygon 2D and manually draw it. But since this is a curve, manually drawing is going to be a bit tedious. So what you can do is select your color node and you'll see a sprite option here. If you click it, you have a create collision polygon 2D sibling, right? And here you can play with these settings and like currently I have a simplification set to 1. So it will create a quite exact polygon. Now these numbers do tend to come in play when you're dealing with performance, but our game is going to be very simple. So there's no performance issue going to happen with this. So let's create a collision polygon 2D. And if you see this, all our warnings are gone and we have this collision here. Okay. Finally, what we'll do is duplicate this top left thing to 3 more times. So let's Control C, Control V more times. Okay. And each of them will give it a different, position. So the top left first one, this needs to be on 200 minus 200. Oh, no, this is the top right. So we'll do a minus 200 on X also, right? And the rotation would be 270. So this is the top left. This would be top right. We'll move this to again transform. X would be 200 and Y would be minus 200. And rotation would be 0 for this. Next, we'll have bottom left. Bottom left would be at minus 200, 200. Rotation would be 180. So since the source image is a 200 by 200 pixel image, that's why you see 200. Source image is, sorry, a 400 by 400 pixel image. And if you take half of it, that's why we are getting 200 everywhere. So in the end, the circle will also be a 400 by 400. Finally, bottom right. And this would be at X would be 200, 200. And rotation would be 90. Let's just save it. And now we need to change the colors also. don't know why I'm getting the polygon view. We'll reopen the scene. Ah, still showing that. Anyway, that doesn't matter. So the first one would be current color 0. Next, we'll do current color 1, then current color 2, and current color 3. So each of the parts will have a different color. Now you can arrange these colors as ever you want. That's not necessary. And with this, we have our basic shape ready. Next, we'll be adding some logic to each of those trap parts to detect collision and signal it to the player. So I have went ahead and created and implemented the trap part GD script, which extends from area 2D, and I've added it to each of the 4 area 2Ds here, since we want each of them to detect collision. Now the actual script is pretty simple, right? On ready, we get a reference to the color node, since we will need to pass the current color to the player to decide what will happen, right? And in the ready function, we connect to the self body entered. So, right, there are two ways to connect to signal, one through the editor and one way through the program itself, right? So you can use connect to any signal on any specific node. So this body entered signal exists on area 2D. That's why we are connecting on self. And whenever this signal emits, we'll be calling the on body entered function. That is this one, right? And the only argument this function would be receiving is the entering body. Now, to keep it type safe, the entering body, we have taken the base class, that is node, and then we check whether the body has a method called onHit. Now, in our game, we know only the player is the one that's going to be colliding with everything. So we can technically avoid this if check, but it's better to have it to avoid any errors can happen anytime. Okay. So if the body has this onHit method, we can call it. Since we are not doing any typecasting, we'll have to manually call it through a string name, and we'll pass the current color as a parameter. Okay. So anytime the player will enter this trap part, this onHit method on the player will be called with the color of the trap. So how this would look is, on the player, we'll define this onHit method, and this will take in a trap color. So that will be passed along, right? And we have a simple if check here. So if the current color of the player, because this color node represents the player's color, is not equal to the trap color, that means we are colliding with some different color, we need to print game over, or we'll be signaling game over later on. So this game over also will have a separate function. Okay. So with this, we have our traps color detection or the collision detection logic done. Now, what else we want is for our circle to keep on rotating. So for that, I have created this simple trap rotator script. This exposes a rotation speed that we can modify in the editor. And on the process, it basically increases the rotation degree by the delta into times of the speed. So this will continuously rotate the circle. So this trap rotator I have added to the shape node 2D that is just inside the trap. So the actual trap scene won't be rotating, only the shape will be rotating, because we are going to have some different things inside the scene like pickups as the star point and the color switch pickup. And we don't want those things to rotate. Okay. So let's save this and try to add some traps in our main scene and see if this works. So back in our main scene, we can just drag and drop the traps. Okay. I'll just position it in a better way. So let's say minus 800. Okay. Or we'll just say minus 1000 to give some distance between the player and the star. And let's just save it and start the game. You can see our circle has been started rotating, and keep a note on the log here. So right now we just collided with the yellow color and you can see the game over is coming. But if we collide with the reddish magenta color, we don't have any game over printing. And if we collide with other colors, we are getting the game over. So with this, we kind of have our basic logic of color switch done. The few things missing from the actual game are some pickups and the ability to make this infinite, because currently we just have one trap, and ideally we would want more and more traps to be coming as long the player keeps going up. So this video itself has gotten pretty long. So the pickups part, or creating the pickups for the player, is something we'll be tackling in the next video. So subscribe for that. And if you have any comments or any feedback, leave it down below in the comments. Do give a like and leave a rating, because that helps me a lot. And I really want this channel to grow, because I have some exciting things planned for my upcoming game that I'm creating. So stay tuned for that, and thanks for watching.